Alright, so the Kang gang is in full force in Quantumania and the MCU right now, but Kang's origins just got a bit more sticky, let's say, in the latest run of the character Kang the Conqueror, Only Myself Left to Conquer. So in this video, I want to talk about his newer origin story, how things differ here or there, and how this could influence the upcoming Phase 6 movie, Avengers Kang Dynasty. Obviously, there are going to be heavy spoilers for the Kang comic run, so this is your warning up front. Now that I've given you some time to get out of here, get ready for the Kang Bang. But yeah, I'm your host, Jared, the he who remains of heavy spoilers. Now let's get into Only Myself Left to Conquer. So jumping into things, Kang's origins have somewhat been established in the halls of time because he is the master of time. Born on Earth 6311 in the 30th century, Nathaniel Richards studied robotics and cross-dimensional recordings of Earth 616. After discovering part of a time machine left by his namesake and ancestor from Earth 616, he would eventually become Kang the Conqueror, who sought to become an overlord of the time-space continuum and his various superpowered variants. Now here in Kang the Conqueror, Only Myself Left to Conquer, Kang or Nathaniel Richards' origins are a bit different, cherry-picking here or there from the origins that were established earlier. It starts with Nathaniel Richards at 18 years old in a futuristic utopia of the 31st century. The perfect world, no famine, no war, just sitting there watching adults do TikTok dances all day long. But Richards dreams of something bigger. He wants to actually do something with his life. As he sees the future doesn't have anything interesting in store, he believes that the past is where the excitement awaits. Basically, nostalgia, as he wants to actually feel something. Searching for answers in Victor Von Doom's old library, he is attacked by a Doombot only to be swiftly saved by a mysterious figure. The international man of mystery tells young Richards that he'll only learn of one side of history from the dusty old books, revealing himself as the Conqueror, the Eternal, the God Pharaoh Ramatut, the Bad Tipper, the Timekeeper Immortus. I was once you, but I am now Kang, offering him unlimited power, worlds, and knowledge to explore as young Richards joins him into the time stream. Kang takes the two to 65 million BC, telling Richards he has but 1 year to master his abilities and become who Kang is now. Further elaborating, he has seen and done almost everything, become an ancient ruler, facing off with the Fantastic Four, the Avengers in Manhattan, Doctor Doom trickery, and much, much more. But one moment stuck out to young Richards. As Kang drank, he cried in the shadows once the name Ravonna was muttered. Kang told Richards their only weakness was love. Never love. Don't do it. Maybe some self-love here or there whenever you need a release, but never love another. Kang is a prisoner of himself, his defeats and failures, so he needs to make Richards perfect. But is there really any living in that sense? Richards meets a mysterious woman while out training, saving her life, and then experiences the joys of life from her village as they feast, eat, drink, dance, and bond with one another. This is where they will live, in the space between the stars. Richards rushes back to tell Kang all about everything, only for him to repeat the quote, "the space between the stars." Kang berates and abuses Richards for saying he finally found something that he loves in this world, going against the one thing that Kang said not to do, as Kang wipes out the village as Richards watches in horror. Richards realizes he had left his cage of a mundane future, but landed in a completely different cage. He devises a plan to steal Kang's suit on the final night before the final day that the great asteroid would smash into Earth, jumping into the time stream, escaping the cage he was in, exploring the limitless bounds of time and space. But he didn't know one thing, was Ramatut's cage was waiting for him. The young Nathaniel Richards finds himself at the beginning of what is later called the Kang Dynasty. Obviously, this is on the MCU docket for Phase 6. I'll talk about it later in the video, don't worry, but Only Myself Left to Conquer would make for a rad Kang story. Live action, that is. Anyway, back to it. Richards is saved by Moon Knight, crazy I know, as the pair go to meet with Khonshu. Though a twist of fate it would be that Khonshu's current vessel and the Moon Knight mantle belongs to Ravonna, the name the older Kang would mention in passing, and having a very similar physique to the woman Richards met back in 65 million BC. Believing this is a second chance, Richards wants to become the hero that the other Ravonna from 65 million BC saw him as, allowing Kang's neurokinetic armor to morph into something a little bit more hero-like Iron Lad. He and Ravonna fought off legions of Rama Tut's forces, developing an affection for one another. Again, Richards not listening to the do not love advice of Kang and kisses Ravonna. But as they get to peckin', Rama Tut gets to wreckin'. Their good time. Enslaving Ravonna using his ultra-diode ray, Richards is ordered to be executed, but advises Rama Tut this may not be the best idea, because if he is him and him is he, what would happen if he killed thee? And what would happen if you hit that like and subscribe button? Probably great things for the both of us here. Smart thinking on both sides, as Rama Tut enslaves Richards, transforming him into the leader of his army, the Scarlet Centurion. However, things go awry as Rama's forces attempt to go toe-to-toe with another mutant force of ancient Egypt, En-Sabanir, or rather, Apocalypse. Richards, now Scarlet Centurion, first learned of war during this time. The rage of battle coursed through his veins, but soon realized his body was a prison and armor a cage. In order to escape Kang's power, he needed both to be broken, and revenge was sworn. Soon after, Rama Tut cowardly escaped back into the time stream to avoid the Fantastic Four, Richards pledged allegiance to Apocalypse, now residing in Khonshu's old temple, so the two could destroy Kang. Their plan was essentially to send Richards into the future, with Apocalypse locking him in a sarcophagus until it was time. Time to destroy Kang and end this forever curse. This brought him into the modern times as the Avengers were gearing up to fight Kang, arriving in his giant time ship. As Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, Wasp, and Giant Man were distracting Kang, Richards snuck aboard his way onto Kang's ship, ready to end it all. Attempting to escape back into the time stream, away from the Avengers, Richards pulls a blaster on Kang, telling him his entire plan, ending his life there, taking the ship back to Egypt, and living his days out with Ravonna. But all of a sudden, Dr. Doom pops out of nowhere from a time stream, wanting to end Kang then and there. Unfortunately, Richards has to team up with his enemy, Kang, to send Dr. Doom soaring back into the Nexus, which kind of looks like the castle that He Who Remains is partying in from the Loki season finale. Just look at this. Richards sticks to it, shooting Kang and following through with the rest of his plan. However, returning back to Egypt to impersonate Rama Tut had its drawbacks, as Ravonna wants nothing of him, even though he allows her to be free. Every plan has its cons, because just like the Rama Tut before had fled the Fantastic Four, the same happens for Richards. Unable to defeat them, he retreats into the time stream, far into a war-torn future, 1,000 years after the Terminators took over and his own 31st century origins. Just as time is a tricky, tricky bitch, it shows her ugly face once again as Richards sees Ravonna leading a resistance against the machines and other evil forces in this otherwise dystopian world he has found himself in. Even though this is a comic, it's just pages, you just know Johnny Lee's Looking for Love started to play when he saw Ravonna's face. Richards now finds himself in 4086 CE with Ravonna and begins to have a Ramona Flowers and Matthew Patel-esque relationship as the two scrap, destroy, and kill the opposing forces. War and violence is their love in this world, However, as Richards thinks he's starting to crack Ravonna's hardened exterior and show his real feelings, she shoots him down, saying his knowledge of history and time may have worked on a lesser woman than she, but this Ravonna belongs to herself. The one and only rule of Kang rang in his mind once again: do not love. Richards finally took this to heart, and his love would be conquest. He conquered and defeated many of the factions in this dystopia, becoming intoxicated with the feeling of victory. It then clicked for him. He finally felt like he was in control of his own destiny. Now, no other time in his life did he feel this. This was something different. He was never going to let it go. Richards finds some old tech he had only heard about from the tales of the other Kang and crafts himself the neurokinetic armor Kang wore all of those years ago. Richards was now Kang. With his new armor, fixed up time ship, Richards, now Kang, set out to conquer all of time and space, from King Arthur to Skrulls to even other variants of himself. His conquest led him to the final kingdom of Earth, the only free one, and to his surprise, Princess Ravonna was its ruler, the same he had met long before his years of tyranny and conquest. Love once again flashed in his mind as he calls off his attack and basically Great Gatsby's it by longingly staring at her kingdom from afar, watching, waiting, commiserating.
Ha ha!
He sees the only way to win her love is to let her kingdom be free. He calls off his attack and instead once again becomes a hero. However, Baltog and Kang's previous generals storm Ravonna's kingdom, killing her, and soon Kang realizes he can never escape it. Kang was his prison all of this time, and he had literally constructed the bars around himself. But Kang sees something his mentor didn't, constructing an omniviewer to view all of time as he promises Ravonna to be his final conquest. Now, thinking about it, this all feels very Cloud Atlas-like, with different incarnations of the same characters popping up in the past, present, future. Kang now creates Chronopolis, and in doing so has Ravonna reborn throughout time and space thousands of times, thinking at least one of them will, maybe love Kang back. Desperate if you ask me, but this all feels like Guy Pearce's The Time Machine, with him going back and forth in time, only to realize he can never be with his lover because of countless reasons. And we see here that there's Ravonna's rejecting him, dying before he arrives, defeating him, and hundreds of other reasons, like the TVA one just whooping his ass. Kang finds one more Ravonna in a distant future that survives, but because of the machines that have built her, she knows all of time and what Kang was doing from the very beginning. In doing so, she saves all of her other selves, destroying Chronopolis and sending Kang floating aimlessly through time. Kang ends up where all of this started, 10 minutes before the young Richards, himself, is asked to join him on the cosmic time stream. Richards was responsible for his own fate all of those thousands of years ago. I absolutely love this all of the destruction was his own fault from the beginning angle that they spun on this. The events of the young Richard play out the same way that we had kind of seen prior, leading to the asteroid strike 65 million years ago. However, the elder Kang knew of Richard's plan because, well, that was him, and instead had a spare suit at the ready. Moments before the asteroid hits, Kang boards his time vessel and instead just exists in space and time. A man who had everything he ever wanted, but with a broken heart. A love that he could never have. A love he experienced at a young age, but then was lost to time. And it's, well, pun intended, heartbreaking to see that elder Kang was the young Richards all along, and that he knew how everything would play out, the pain that love would bring them, but he couldn't stop his younger self from enjoying the thrill of love. But there is the downfall that comes after it. Ravonna was his true one love, honestly the person who created and shaped him, but this looping story that just goes on and on and on. Much like the prison he mentions throughout, he's never really in control while also being in control. That's why the final words are never, ever love. It's such a bitter, sweet, and brutal ending to his story. A hero, a villain, a Kang that just wanted to hang with Ravonna, but instead ended up in a love coma. Now, I could potentially see Quantumania laying the groundwork for this Kang origin story and how it could play into the larger MCU with Avengers Kang Dynasty. The Quantum Realm's Chronopolis is just a variation on the Chronopolis that is featured here, and essentially the Kang Prime finally arrived here after the whole time story adventure. I wouldn't be surprised if Ravonna is brought into this in some capacity, being implemented at the TVA by Kang himself, and also would be a cheeky wink-wink nod to the TVA outfitted Ravonna in this comic run. An affection of sorts, maybe not the whole love or death approach to the two's relationship. Also, the idea of the three timekeepers being Immortus, Ramatut, and Scarlet Centurion, I mean, come on. This story would allow for a whole bevy of MCU heroes from different generations, timelines, multiverses to pop up and have a swing at the big guy, which is the big rumor for Secret Wars. And the whole idea of his creation was his destruction, and he is solely responsible would be a hell of a story, a cool M. Night Shyamalan-esque holy shit reveal at the end of things. It's a badass origin, so expect at least some influences from this. But obviously, I'd love to hear what you think of the different Kang origins here, and would this make for a great driver for the Avengers Kang Dynasty? And I'll let you know, we're currently running a competition giving away 3 Rocky IV box sets on the 15th of March, and all you gotta do to get a chance of winning this is like this video, subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment for Kang, anything about Kang down below. We pick the comments at random at the end of every single month, and the winners of last month are on screen right now. So if that's you, message us on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, be sure to check out some of our other Kang content with our Quantumania breakdown and post-credit scenes explainer. But with all of that out of the way, thank you for your constant support. I've been Jared. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and peace.